Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. We want to welcome all our viewers across the globe to FOL Justice Forum. We come to you on as needed basis. This is where we talk about legal issues. It's very, very good to talk the politics, the opinions, but once in a while, we bring you a legal side of things. A lot of things have been happening, and you have discussed it. We too have discussed it at length, but it's time to bring in a legal expert who has to explain things to us a little better. Tonight, I have the honor, Councillor Frederick Jayweh is my guest tonight, and we are going to be discussing some legal issue. Councillor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dennis. I'm always happy to be here.
And we are always happy to have you, Councillor Jayweh. It is very important. A lot of things have happened, almost everything, even like the counter meet. Sometimes when referee blow, they say, oh, this is not foul, it should be this way. It is easy to discuss these things, but we want to say, let's ask an expert. And this is where Focus on Liberia is different from any other platform that you're going to watch on the internet. Quite recently, a number of things have happened, right? And I've been wondering, like, for instance, the Western Cluster. Western Cluster, the agreement that was signed, there was an NDA signed 2011, and then there is an MOU signed 2022. And it appears to me that the company was operating on the MOU. So I was wondering, can the company do that? Is it legal? What does our law say about these things? Can the executive do X, Y, Z? Can the executive engage into legal contracts? I was wondering about that, and so I called Councillor Jayweh and said, let's discuss this. Also, you may know that we have some issues that came up. Say, Ambassador Joseph Numa Boaka, they were scared that he's not well, he may not run, or what have you. And so people started to talk about, okay, what if he's not able to run? What happened? What if we have 1 week, 2 days, or 1 month to the presidential elections, and a current presidential aspirant or candidate is declared incapacitated? And I want to be clear here. We are not doing this because we heard about Ambassador Boaka, but I started wondering, what is the legal ramification around that? If the presidential candidate is not going to run, will they declare the entire ticket null and void, or what are they going to do? Or will the vice presidential candidate automatically take over? These are things that I'm wondering about, but the legal people have answers, and that's why we are here. And another thing that we want to, one more thing we want to discuss. So that's the whole basis why we thought we should have this discussion. Councillor, I know we'll get into it, but that's the point. And another thing that we'll talk about, the cache of arms. Weapons were discovered in Liberia, and we searched. The police went and searched the container, found the weapons, and confiscated those weapons. They also went into Brewerville, and I believe they have gone to other areas to search. So what does a police need, law enforcement, what do they need before they search? Something I heard is search warrant. What is this search warrant? What if you don't have a search warrant, but someone is in danger? Can you search? And if you don't have a search warrant, you search a place, can the person sue you and say, bring my stuff back, because you never have a search warrant in the first place? So these and more, that's why we are having the discussion tonight. Councillor, welcome. And just an overview, tell us, my audience, why is it important that even though we are smart, but it's always good to get a legal or the expert opinion on these issues.
Well, Dennis, thank you again. These are important issues in spite of how much education people may have or Liberians may have. The law is an area that is pretty technical. What you may be thinking to be the law or why this is being done could become erroneous. Take, for example, when the Cummings trial was going on, there was an application to the magistrate court to have Mr. Cummings to produce the original copy of the agreement that brought the CPP together. And there was a lot of noise about it. Why would a defendant in a criminal case be required or asked to produce the documents or evidence against himself or herself? So there were views that a defendant is never to incriminate himself or herself. So Mr. Cummings could not be asked to produce their constitution or the constitution that brought the CPP together. And there were those who said, well, the CPP started as a corporation, and therefore documentation created by the CPP is not covered by the incrimination clause of our constitution, the criminal procedure law. Now, that matter came and went. Currently, we have started to hear that the police said through its intel was told that a cache of arms were in a container at the free port of Monrovia. And we all saw the video that the police said they were able to go and open the container and come to, and later on they went to a house in Monrovia area. And they saw some arms in the ceiling that they brought to the police station. And the press people were there, the director of police 100, 102, and I think the director for CID affairs, the small arm person director also present. So the question is, and then with the arms, gunshots, guns were all in the hands of everybody at the police station, the bullets and whatnot, and how dangerous those things were. And so people were starting to get fearful as to whether another war is coming again, Liberia, and so everybody forgot about what is the legal thing, what is the question, how do you search for guns and bullets? What do you do when you get those things that you're searching for? What is the chain of custody that is required to be used in order to protect those things if you wish to use them in the courtroom? Can everybody play along with it? Can everybody change it? The Western cluster as a whole, people have started to hear that the company is now mining iron ore. I saw on video almost like a mountain of ore packing at the Freeport, a dump at the Freeport, and I understood that the ship was there to take it out of there to wherever they're taking it for sale. And recently, the illness of Dr. Joseph Boycott, the UP candidate, the question is, should he not be able to run? Should he be sick and incapacitated or something else God knows could happen to him? Then what happened next? So all of these issues have legal implications. They are tied, not just people talking about it, but what are the way forward in order for our people to understand what could the Election Commission do if that is the situation. Dr. Boycott is so ill that he cannot run any longer. What is it that Election Commission could do? Is the vice presidential candidate capable to stand into the shoes and be the president to run in 2023? Mind you, we have not very long time. We get to October 10, 2023. So those questions need to be legally answered, and our people need to be made clear to take away the politics.
Thank you so much. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is FOL Justice Forum. My name is Dennis Jai, and my guest tonight is Councillor Frederick Jayweh. And we want to look at the legal side of all these issues. And Again, welcome to the show. If you have things that you are discussing and you want to get expert opinion on some of these issues, sometimes with the politics get a little boring and we want to inject. So we have discussed this and we want to help the population. We want to help Liberia. Actually, this is the goal of FOL, to be able to educate, to elevate, and promote all things Liberia. So let's get started. And Councillor Jayweh, let's start with the Western Cluster. So
Yeah.
Western Cluster, we have the MDA, we have the MOU, and we have mining. So in this case, when a company comes to Liberia to operate, what should be the process? Let's start from there.
Let me walk our audience through the Constitution, the constitutional provision. Okay. First, we will look at Article 2 and I say A and B of the Liberian Constitution, 1986 Constitution. We could also look at, that's Chapter 1, Article 2, A and B, Article 3 of the same Chapter 1. Let me just start to read Article 2. It says, this Constitution is the supreme and fundamental law of Liberia, and its provision shall have binding force and effect on all authorities and persons throughout the Republic. To B, any law, treaties, statutes, decrees, customs, regulations found to be inconsistent with it shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void of no legal effect. Now, I want to lay the ground that of all laws in Liberia, the Constitution is considered as the supreme law of the land. Why did I cite Chapter 1, the structure of the state, Article 2 and 3? I am laying that foundation because I'm going to move forward to determine whether the MOU under which the Western Cluster enter with the government of Liberia to operate, and they are operating currently under that, whether such MOU meets the constitutional provision of the Republic of Liberia. First, the Constitution takes precedent over all laws in Liberia, including the MOU. Then, secondly, I also want to establish that where such law, meaning the MOU, if considered illegal, the Constitution allows the Supreme Court, under its judicial review power, to strike such an MOU down. Now let's move on to the power of the legislature. That's Chapter 5, Article 29. It says the legislative power of the Republic shall be vested in the legislature of Liberia, which shall consist of 2 houses, a Senate and a House of Representatives, both of which must pass on all legislation. Now, why did I read this? I want to establish the distinction between the power of the executive, and that's the next thing we'll look at, the power of the legislative and the power of the judiciary. Okay. The legislature is, by law and by our Constitution, vested with the power to make laws that are binding on everyone, including Liberians and business people in Liberia. So the power to make laws is not vested in the executive. The executive power is vested in the president. And what the executive does is responsible to execute the laws, enforce the law as interpreted by our courts, and the executive does not have the legal power to make law. The MOU is in the form of a law that was signed between Western Cluster and the executive branch of government. Now, under our law article, let's go to Article 34. Article 34 of the Liberian Constitution. Article 34, D, I1, I2, maybe 3. So let's look at D. That's the power of the legislature is enumerating. If you start with Article 34, it says A, the legislature has power to create new counties or political subdivision. B, to provide security of the republic. C, to work out common defense. D, to levy taxes. This is our interest. D, to levy taxes, duties, imports, excise, and other revenues. To borrow money, issue currency, mint coins, and to make appropriations for the fiscal governance of the republic, subject to the following qualifications. One, all revenue bills, whether subsidies, charges, imports, duties, or taxes, or other financial bill shall originate with the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concord with amendment as on other bills. Now, if the operation of the Western cluster in the Bapolu, in the Bumi, in the Bapolu, in the Cape Man County.
Councillor Jayweh, let's take a step back, because maybe somebody watching this may not understand the MDA and the MOU and what these things have to do with the with Western Cluster, right? So this is the copy of the MDA, and act to ratify the concession agreement among the government of the Republic of Liberia, Western Cluster Limited, CSAC Goa Limited, Bloom Mountain Limited, and Elenito Minerals and Mining Limited. This is approved August 22, 2011, published by Authority, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Monrovia, Liberia. So, Councillor Jayweh, this is the MDA, which was signed in 2011. So, and it went to, you can read it. But what does this MDA mean, and who did it?
So in Liberia, for a company to operate like Western Cluster, that company, the agreement between the company and the Republic of Liberia, when drafted by the Ministry of Justice or Legal Minds, it must go through the process of ratification.
Okay.
Meaning that the House must vote and decide that what is seen in the MDA, the Mineral Development Agreement, is good for Liberia. So all of the executive, all of the members of the majority member of the House of Representatives will vote and say this is in the interest of the Republic of Liberia. Therefore, we will agree to vote and ensure that this the MDA become law.
Right.
After the House has done its part, it must start with the House. Because all revenue bills, including companies coming to start mining iron ores in Liberia, including rubber plantation companies like Firestone, including the LAC or all other foreign-owned companies, such agreement between the government of Liberia and the company is not done until it goes through the executive, goes through the House of Representatives, and the Senate also review and concord with what the House of Representatives has done, because it is a revenue bill, meaning that in the absence of the MDA or in the absence of an MDA, a memorandum of understanding is only drawn between the company and the president, and the executive branch of government. What the executive has done or is doing is usurping the responsibility and the power of the legislature to ratify such an agreement.
Right. So little by little now. So the MDA is the one, after it's drawn out, it goes through both houses.
Correct.
started by the representative, concurred with by the senator, and the president can sign or something like that.
Correct.
All right. Now, so that's legal. That's the process that is backed by the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Then let's go to the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding.
Now, let me explain the reason why they have to go through that process.
Okay.
Because the Constitution will read particularly Article 34, D, R1, 2, and maybe 3, vest exclusively the power to raise revenue for the government and people of the Republic of Liberia vested in the National Legislature of Liberia,
Okay.
not in the executive. That's why it has to go through that process in order to make it law, because it means that the representatives are representing the people of Liberia. The senators are also representing the entire countries that they are from, and so it is so that it becomes binding and effective on the Republic of Liberia and the company. Now let's go to your question.
Now we come to the MOU. So the MDA, this was signed, went through, that's the process, 2011. And now we have an MOU. And the MOU basically is a memorandum of understanding. I think it starts with, let me even go a step, because the letter about this MOU comes from the Justice Minister.
Mm-hmm.
And we go into the MOU. It talks about this, the Western Cluster. So now, what is this MOU legally?
So let me say, what is an MOU? Is legally, it could be a gentleman agreement between Frederick, Jayweh, and Denija.
Okay.
Or it could be a business agreement between two companies. So, mind you, I'm saying an agreement, private agreement between two private citizens,
Right.
or an agreement between business entities, or an agreement between the government of Liberia and perhaps one of a private company that is about to do business. But if it has to do with raising revenue, reducing taxes, collecting taxes, import duties and whatnot, then it cannot be an MOU. It has to be, since in the case of a mining process, it has to be by way of the mineral development agreement. Reason for that is that the MOU between the government of Liberia and a mining company is not binding because it has not been ratified by the legislature, because it constitutes a quasi manner of making laws by the executive branch of government. And laws are not made, laws that are binding on the Republic of Liberia and its people cannot be made by the president and his ministers. In this case, the Minister of Lands and Mines signing the MOU, the Minister of Finance signing the MOU, the Minister of where the National Investment Chairman of the National Investment Commission signing the MOU, and the Minister of Justice signing the MOU. All of the ministers and officials that are just named, they are part and parcel of the executive branch of government.
Right. And let me read your names now. In witness whereof the parties have executed this memorandum of understanding this 12th day of April 2022 for the government of the Republic of Liberia, Honorable Cllr Murray, Minister of Lands and Mines, Honorable Molly Wooler B. Gray, Chairman, National Investment Commission, Honorable Samuel D. Tua Jr., Minister of Finance and Development Planning. Then for Western Cluster, we have Cheaton 7, and then this is attested by Councillor Frank Musa Dean. So these are all people from the executive.
Mm-hmm.
So is this I mean, the name said from the memorandum of understanding, right? So so this represents an agreement, a binding legal agreement, like a contract between the government of Liberia and Western Cluster, and this is signed by these ministers.
Correct. So, but legally, that agreement is not binding on the Republic of Liberia.
Why?
The reason for that is that all revenue bills, all the passage of law in Liberia is vested exclusively into the orbit of the legislature. So there is a separation of power clause that only allowed the House of Representatives and the Senate to ratify an agreement, the MDA, if there is any, for it to be binding on the Republic of Liberia. But the power to enforce the essence and elements of the contract, let's take it that this MOU was taken to court. The power to enforce the MOU will be on the executive branch of government.
Right.
But the executive branch of government cannot be entering into an MOU and attempting to enforce it on the people of Liberia when their representatives have not ratified it, when their senators have not voted to agree that this should be an agreement binding on the Republic of Liberia. I would say that this is the executive branch dancing with its own players, because the legislature that represents the people that should say that this agreement to start the mining process in the Bumi County, Bapolu, and Grand Cape Man County has not been ratified. Let me go back and tell you what it said. If you read the MOU, the MOU is saying it supersedes any other agreement that existed before.
Yeah.
Can the government of Liberia, headed by the executive branch of government, without going to court, cancel an agreement that may have existed on an MOU? No.
It says the provision of this MOU shall supersede all provisions of the agreement which are contrary or in conflict hereto. The agreement has amended to the extent provided in this MOU shall be in full force and effect.
Yeah, let me just tell you, my understanding is that the MDA, when it was entered by the Cllr government in 2011, and a little went ahead and sold its share, 59%. And I understand that it was bought by the current Western cluster. And so there was some amendment done to the formal ratified agreement that needed to be taken through the House of Representatives and the Senate to ensure that the House will concur with the amendment. So in the absence of that amendment being ratified by the House and the Senate, technically the MDA, as it was returned to the status quo ante, meaning that it returned to the stage prior to Anelito selling its 59% share. All the government could have done could have legally done was to ensure that either they went back to where the purchasing of the 59% by Western cluster, which is operating today, and then ensure that an MDA, the amended MDA, goes through the House of Representatives, voted upon, and concurred to by the Senate before Western cluster would start operation. But the government shortcutted that. The Minister of Justice, which is a lawyer, worked with the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Planning, the Minister of Lands, Mines and Energy, and the National Investment Commission. They all sat down and wrote an agreement to allow Western cluster to commence operation.
So what would be the consequence of this? I know Western cluster started, I don't know if they are still operating based on that MOU as of today, but they started. So what's going to happen? Somebody going to get punished, somebody going to get fined, somebody going to get sued, or
well, the citizens of Bumi County at some point, one or two of them, I spoke with them, and they were also on other radio stations interested in challenging the illegality of the MOU and citing Article 34I, 1, 2, and 3. So if to answer your questions clearly, if there was a legal challenge and a lawyer may argue, or the government lawyer may argue that in order to challenge the MOU before the Supreme Court or before the Civil Law Court, you must have standing to sue. Yes, the people of Liberia have standing to sue because the mineral in question belongs to the people of Liberia. The government of Liberia is just a representative of the people. And so those people who may have thought that they are injured as a result of the MOU could proceed to either the Civil Law Court and file a petition for a declaratory judgment, meaning that ask the court to declare the MOU unconstitutional. And if that petition was filed because of the constitutionality of the issue raised before the Civil Law Court, the matter could travel to the Supreme Court, because the Civil Law Court, being a lower court, a subordinate court, cannot decide a constitutional issue. Or the citizen could proceed to the Supreme Court Justice in Chambers and file a petition for prohibition to undo, to prevent Western Cluster and the government of Liberia living by and enforcing the MOU, and to undo all of what Western Cluster and the government of Liberia had done, because the MOU is subordinated to the MDA. And that because the Republic of Liberia, the power to raise revenue, bills and whatnot, is vested in the legislature, meaning the House and the Senate, the president and his ministers could not have written a memorandum of understanding to authorize Western Cluster to operate. And that the oil packing now stack at the free port of Monrovia a prohibition could prevent the oil from being loaded onto any ship to leave Liberia, because there was no law that gave Western Cluster the right to be in Liberia and operate. So,
then what happened to money? The money that was spent, the things that were done, will the money be, restituted, or how is that going to work? Because money changed hands during that time.
Well, I understand that prior to Western Cluster returning to Liberia, the senator from Birmingham County, Senator Snow, the minister of energy, mines and energy, flew to India, I guess there where the headquarters of the company is. And there were negotiations that went on, and I understand that at the time, the Western Cluster were owing the government of Liberia taxes pretty close to $23 million. And the executive agreed along with the company to waive, to only take $10 million and waive the rest of the money, pretty close to $14 million. Waive it, that Western Cluster should not pay. And based upon that, the memorandum of understanding was issued, and Western Cluster were able to start work. And I understand that Western Cluster had paid $5 million already to the government of Liberia through the Ministry of Finance, or I guess the central bank. And so your question as to whether money was expanded or money changed hands, under our law, what is not legally done is not done at all. So I assume Western Cluster should have hired a Liberian lawyer, distinct from the government lawyer, to advise Western Cluster to say, look, you are going to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the government of Liberia. Here is what our laws say. So Western Cluster would have been much more protected as to how much money is spent. Has it spent $5 million? I understand that is true. Did it spend other money? That is no record. There is no record to show that. Can it get back its $5 million, or did it spend its $5 million? What the law referred to buyer beware, in a manner that it cannot recover it? That's an issue, because the MOU will not bind the government of Liberia. But again, are the affected counties willing to go to court? I have not heard anything from Councilor Vani Sherman from Cape Mount County. I have not heard anything from the the representative from Cape Mount County, now they can survive Shema. The senators, there are 2 senators, I think, from Sando County, right? Simeon something, I forgot his last name. Simeon is one of the, I think he's a junior senator. Councillor Vani Shema is a senior senator. And I think there are some representatives from Cape Mount. I've not heard them say anything. I've not seen anything that they are rating. They seem with Apollo.
So because this happened, did anyone break the law?
Well, the government of Liberia and Western Cluster has violated the Constitution of Liberia.
And what is the punishment for that?
Parties that are affected can go again. 2 things. They can go to either the civil law court and raise the constitutional issue that protect them, and because it matters, and file a petition for declaratory judgment and raise a constitutional issue concerning that their interest is affected as a result of the MOU, and the civil law court will be required to file the matter over to the Supreme Court because constitutional issue have been raised. I, as a lawyer, will not start with a petition for declaratory judgment. I will proceed to the justice in chambers and file a petition for prohibition. I would have the prohibition to stop the transportation of the ore from Liberia. I will have the prohibition to stop Western Cluster from proceeding under the MOU. I will have the prohibition to undo the entire MOU and ask the government to return to status quo ante. Ask the Supreme Court to declare the government to return to status quo ante. But in Liberia, nothing has been done.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we'll have questions from our audience and comments, but let's go to our next issue. The next issue has to do with the arms and ammunition that were discovered, right? We all watched the press conference from the LMP.
Mm-hmm.
There was a search done on the container at the Freeport, and they took some iron and displayed them. It was like my show and tell, like my son in the kindergarten class doing the show and tell. And also they said, went to, according to, they did not get a search warrant for the container. They got a search warrant, according to them, for Brewerville. And henceforth, the LMP, the Inspector General said, you will be searching cars. You know, if you have your car, you are going somewhere, we'll, search. So I want you to tell me and our audience here tonight about search warrant. What is it? Where does it originate? And how is it executed?
So what is a search warrant? The Liberian Criminal Procedure Law, Chapter 11, speaks very clearly to what is a search warrant. The content, that is Chapter 11.1, 11.2, A to D, 11.3, 11.4, 11.5, and it goes to filing of paper. So a search warrant is a legal process or a precept or a rate from any of the courts of Liberia. In most cases, it will originate with a magistrate court or where there is no magistrate sitting. The request for a warrant will originate with a justice of the peace, where the justice of the peace refuses to issue the warrant. And I will tell you the warrant and its content. The applicant can then proceed to one of the criminal courts or the circuit courts to ask the sitting judge to issue the warrant to go search for things that they purport to be illegal in the country. Now, under section 11.1, it says a search warrant may be issued by a magistrate, justice of the peace, or any other judicial officer empowered to perform such function whose jurisdiction encompasses the area wherein the property sought is located. First thing we need to concern ourselves with is that a search warrant is not just issued in from the thin air. The magistrate or justice of the peace that wishes to issue or that issue a search warrant must have jurisdiction of the place or the premises or the district where the search is to be undertaken. That's the first thing. So if the justice of the peace or magistrate does not have jurisdiction, let's be very simple. What if you live in New Kutan or Lokita? And let's say the Freeport, let be very direct. Let's say the Freeport of Monrovia is outside, legally, outside the jurisdiction of the Monrovia City Court. So even though the police station is very close to Temple of Justice and within the jurisdiction of the Monrovia City Court, but anything after, if you go down Waterside, I'm sure you have traveled down Waterside before. Yeah. You see the new bridge, the old bridge, the one they call the Waterside Bridge. Right. All of the edge, I think you don't get the when you come down Coleman Hill, if you've been like when you come down Coleman Hill, when you remain on the Coleman Hill side, you don't go as far as what they call the general market. You don't go that far. The Monrovia City Court jurisdiction stops, let's say, almost below Coleman Hill. All other places from there going on to, when you go straight down Coleman Hill, passing by the old bridge, the Waterside Bridge, all the way coming down the general market, that's new. That is the jurisdiction of the West Point Magistrate Court. So since the container in question is alleged to have been at the Freeport of Monrovia, Monrovia City Court, which is the magistrate court very close to the police station, lacks jurisdiction. So it could not have issued a search warrant to search in the container. Equally so, the West Point Magisterial Court could not have issued a search warrant because where the vicinity where the Freeport is located is under the jurisdiction of the New Kuta Magisterial Court, which has been moved now to closer to Simple Bridge. The government of Liberia with Ulime build the court from inside. They're no longer into New Kuta, but they're very close to Simple Bridge. So a magistrate from there will have to issue a petition, the search warrant. But how is the search warrant? What are the things that constitute the search warrant? How is the property searched for? First thing is the law provides that it talks about the issuance and content of the warrant. That is section 11.3. It said a search warrant shall issue only on an affidavit or written complaint made upon oath, establishing the grounds for the issuance of the warrant. Only by way of an affidavit or by a written complaint. I'm sure you watched the police presentation. Yeah. Police itself admitted that when he went to the Freeport, identified some container and search for the quote-unquote arms that they found at the Freeport. It went there with only joint security members. So the practice in Liberia is that the police, if it thought that there was a container at the Freeport by law and that a contraband was found, let's say something illicit, stolen property was in our container, or an illicit or forfeited property or prohibited property was in our container, or a contraband was also in there, or instrument like the guns. Right. Were assumed or presumed to be in there, and the intel told them that was in there, they must have first gone to the magistrate court in New Kuta.
In spite of the urgency, let's say there's a bomb in there, it's supposed to blast anytime from now. Do I still go through that process?
Well, the police did not say. They said
I'm just saying.
Well, no. If it is, there is something called a hot pursuit. Okay. Meaning that the incident appears so grave that the time to proceed to the magistrate court to obtain a writ of search warrant to search the container may be improbable or may be more harmful to the people of Liberia. So then a search warrant in that case may not be necessary. And I'm saying may not be necessary because the facts will prove what is the urgency. The police said that they've been having, the director of police, he said we've been having this intel over a period of time.
Right. So Councillor Jayweh, what would the judge be looking for in that search warrant to grant it? And is this search warrant only coming from law enforcement? I can go seek search warrant to go search Councillor Jayweh's house. It should come from law enforcement. And what
No, let me. A private citizen can also go to the magistrate court in his jurisdiction, what the magistrate says, and explain to the government lawyer that, look, I think when I was in America and for the past one month or 6 months, my house was broken into by John Brown, and I think my ice box, my TV, my every other thing in the house could be in the house of John Brown, which is just about 5 or 10 houses away from me, or in Newcastle. The thing was taken from my place in what you call it, Downwater side. And it's presumed to have been sold to John Brown in Lokentown. Early Newcastle people alone in Lokentown. So the government of Liberia, the government lawyer will file. That's what the law says. What you call it? Will file an affidavit, prepare almost like a complaint, and have the justice of the peace to verify it and file it with the magistrate court and ask for a search warrant, or upon just a written complaint. So the government lawyer will be acting for you to apply for the search warrant. So the search warrant not just limited to police.
And what must be in it to convince people that yes, let's go search the man's house? Should there be what? What are they looking for to grant that?
The complaint or the affidavit must state that one, stolen or embezzled property might be at John Brown house. In this case, the property, the police, and then two, let me go to two, illicit, forfeited, or prohibited property, bombs. The thing we were just talking about, bomb and other things that could be nearer to the community. And then three, contrabands. At one point, I think you myself heard that there was a container that was taken out of the Freeport that was never checked, and it contained cocaine about 1 million, 100 million, somewhat down. Right. Contraband. Or instruments. In the case of the guns, they said that they alleged that was in the container. So
and what if you say all that we go check and it's not there? Am I the person who called for the search warrant? What happened? You get sued or you get punished, or what happened to you?
Well, there is a remedy. There is a remedy. So if it is between private parties, there could be an action of damages for wrong against you.
Okay.
If it is against the Liberian government, the government has not set up a claim court, but there could be action of damages also for malicious prosecution. But in order for the magistrate to issue the warrant or order the warrant issue, there are specific requirements. Okay. One, it says the such a warrant, meaning the search and seizure, shall issue only on affidavit. So in the affidavit, the person who wanting to search will say stolen properties are in the place they're going to search. There are illicit or forfeited property or prohibited property. There are contraband in the place, instruments like the guns and things in the place. Because the police said that they had intel over a period of time, they should be able to describe the items they're looking for, be able to name the place that is going to look for the item, must be able to name the person to be searched or describe the person. And if all of these were not done, and in the practice is that the magistrate court will issue the warrant and give it to the magisterial police at the Monrovia at the magistrate court, and ask the police to work with the magistrate police. The reason for that is that it's for fairness purposes. That you don't just go start running around, say searching from
right. Especially somebody may say You know, my significant other is believed to be in that house. So let's go. You get a search warrant.
And it says that procedure upon neglect or refusal to issue the warrant. No, let me go to 11.15.
Yeah. Councillor Jayweh, let's go to this one, right?
Mhm.
So in the case of the Freeport container, right? What
Yes.
if there's no warrant? Could the police go in there and search?
So the police could go in there depending upon the urgency.
Okay.
That say the police could presume that the police could have intel that maybe 3 to 4 bombs were shipped to Liberia in that container, including other arms and whatnot. And not an intel over a period of time.
Right.
Because if you have intel over a period of time, then you have sufficient time to go to the court and pray for a search warrant.
But
And
in this case,
describe
the
it.
search warrant was not sought for this container, as we heard on the in the interview.
Mhm. So where the search warrant is improperly issued, that process is killed by section 11.10 of the criminal procedure law. It's a motion for return of property and to suppress evidence. Now, I will read and just explain it. It's a ground. A person aggrieved by an unlawful search and seizure may make a motion for return of the property and to suppress for use as evidence anything so obtained on that ground. In other words, if the search warrant, because they went to the Freeport, from the scene SG, the another SG from the scene,
IG.
Inspector General press conference. He said they have over a period of time have intel. So since they proceeded without getting a search warrant and went ahead and broke into the container and said they found guns in there by themselves without a court officer leading the execution of the warrant, that warrant is defective on its face. And since the warrant is defective on its face or is no good, the law requires that property seized under such a warrant be returned to the place or the person from whom it was seized.
What? So in case of the guns, since there were no search warrant, the people who have the container can say, "Bring our guns back."
Well, here's the issue about that. When the search warrant is issued, the officers that issue the warrant supposed to do an inventory of all the items they sought for and leave copy of the search warrant and the inventory with the person who property or place was searched. And the person who owned whose place was searched will issue a receipt that yes, you have given me, they will issue a receipt that they have taken all these items along with the inventory. If that is not done, and because what the SG said, 100 said that we opened the container, we saw some guns, and we closed it, but the container is now under our custody. And so, if a search warrant was not executed, the question that comes, were not properly executed, or were never executed at all, the question that comes to the mind of a legal person is that did they take the guns there and say that the gun was shipped to Liberia? Assuming that the gun was shipped to Liberia, did they have the right to go and take those things? Where did they return? Because when the search warrant is issued, the officer must return or report back to the court as to the items that were found. The court must order that the items that were found be kept into a secure and protected area, because the evidence in question could be used by the prosecution during trial.
Wow. So in this case, in the Freeport area, what the police should be doing now would be, you get a search warrant, you go and search, do an inventory of everything that's in the container. Don't take 25% and you close it and say we're already in our custody. So one bird in the hand is better than two in the air. So inventory to the person who has the container and also a copy of the warrant.
Yes. So
I don't think that was done.
no, that was not done. The other thing that is interesting is that I asked myself, is the government of Liberia intending to go to court and prosecute somebody for these arms that the claim was found? If the answer is yes, then is the government having a legal standing to proceed and convict those who they say might have trafficked the arm into Liberia? If the answer is yes, did the warrant, did the search committed at the free port of Monrovia, where 25% of the container was searched and the rest of the thing was locked up and the entire container taken to the police station, I assume, because that's what the police, not even assume, that's what the RG says. Say, we took the container is under our custody. Could the government of Liberia be able to convict anyone upon that faulty search or defective search? The answer is no. Could the government of Liberia attempt to proceed to come to the United States and file a petition for extradition of what they call the guy, boy Benjamin, what the last name, some boy Benjamin
Baker,
an attempt to have boy Benjamin Baker return to Liberia to be indicted and prosecuted? Would any court in the United States participate or listen to the Minister of Justice in order to try to extradite the quote-unquote boy Benjamin Baker? No, because in order for an extradition to take place, the government that praying for extradition into the United States must establish that a crime was committed. Was a crime committed when the police went there and did the search by themselves? But let me tell you what was interesting. I saw 100. I think you saw that too. 100, 102. There was another guy another policeman who claimed that he's the instructor of firearm. And then I saw, I think there were 4 or 5 of them. Every one of them, when you take one gun, you look at it, you give it to your friend. 100 takes it, give it to 102. 102 give it to the guy who is the instructor for firearm. And what was interesting, which I saw, was the right hand had glove, the left hand had no glove. Mm-hmm. So the chain, the criminal law requires for a chain of custody and protection of the evidence. Those firearms, are they compromised already? Of course, yes. If all the bullets, because they were taking, I think the firearm man would take one bullet. Say, you see the bullet? When they put it in this gun and they shoot you, it would turn your entire intestine upside down. Then 1 or 2 would take it and say, yeah. When he thinks that the information the firearm man gave is not enough, then 1 or 2 jump in. You take the gun, you see the gun, the tap out, we'll call it this. And you can bring the people closer and you shoot at them. Every one of them who had reason to play with that gun, those guns, cannot establish a case in the courtroom.
Councillor Jayweh, the way you are saying it, some may be thinking that you are making it up. About the one. So I always said that it's important to have a seasoned practicing lawyer, to be not a policeman, but to be legal counsel in the police station. So where the Minister of Justice cannot be reached immediately, that lawyer should be available to guide the police people. Because the police people, they are not lawyers. Unless the only policeman I knew that was a lawyer at the time, maybe 2 of them. I knew Chris Massacre, right from the law school. And I think it's Councillor Jayweh, just so people will not think that you're making it up, let me just play a short clip of that drill.
So you see this is called hollow point. This round is very, very dangerous. It enters you, it almost behaves like you see how the mushroom is. It turns all your inner organs. It turns and damages everything. That's how powerful it is. So these ones are called 5.56 rounds. Most of you see the weapons that ER use, the M4. These are the rounds. They are also very dangerous. All of these rounds, they are very, very dangerous, and they have very high stopping power. That is, even if you are wearing bulletproof.
Very, very dangerous. So, Councillor Jayweh, let's talk about the Brewerville. In Brewerville, what we learned was a search warrant was sought, and they got that one. But I don't believe an inventory was done.
No, the director of police, you know, I still do not understand why it was important for 100 or the police authority to conduct a press conference after such that they consider so material to the Liberia peace, to the peace and security of Liberia. I don't understand why there was a press conference. But again, taking them for what they are, the 100 said that they went to Brewerville. He didn't say what they got a search warrant for, because in Brewerville there is a magistrate court. So you could not have gotten a search warrant in Newtown and go to Brewerville to go search the home that you're talking about. So the search warrant, and it could not have also been obtained from the Newtown Magistrate Court to go into Brewerville, because there is a city magistrate court in Brewerville. And he said they went and saw one young man, I think Augustine Tama, Ezekiel Tama. Ezekiel Tama, he was hiding in the ceiling, and they arrested him. They took the arms and ammunition, and they took him maybe somewhere. Where did they put it? So then the thing that is important is that in as much as arms and ammunition could be as dangerous as it is to the safety and peace of Liberia, the court must be involved.
Yeah.
The items in question must be the inventory must be taken. A copy of the search warrant and an inventory containing the items taken from that home must be given to the person who was met in the home. Did they take ice baths from there? Who knows? Because there was no inventory. Did they take the television, the television that they saw there? Because I understand that's a brand new house that that boy Benjamin Baker is alleged to own. And Liberians here who may have some money will buy television, buy computer, every other thing, and ship it to Liberia and put it in their home. So, one other major thing that it does is that it tells the Liberians living in the United States to be very careful how they send things to Liberia. Because the police went and searched that place without there's no inventory.
Yeah.
They did not return the items they saw in a house to the court to be supervised by the court. It's under their control. So you put things in a container from here to go to your home in Sano County, and the police had just declared that they have martial law, that they can search anywhere, anytime, and search for what they wish to search for without obtaining a search warrant. So are they going to take the property that you put in your new house as a Liberian? Today I heard the police, the public relations officer say, diaspora Liberians, if you want to bring trouble in this country, we will not allow you. Are you painting all Liberians living in the United States and elsewhere as people who want to make trouble in the country? When your search is that defective? I heard the Minister of Justice said that he will come to the United States and file a petition, an extradition petition, where that's the end. He will never come to the United States. But guess what? Today on the scene, I saw the YouTube video that the guns that they found at the Freeport and in Brazil, the matter is now in the hands of the diplomat, Liberian, I guess, Minister of Foreign Affairs, along with the American Embassy. Are criminal cases handled by diplomats? When did that start? Why would the American government get involved with guns that are found at the Freeport to do what? To negotiate what?
Councillor Jayweh, let's look at this other one. Like at the Freeport, right? You have the custom officers who search. Like I go to Liberia now when I land at JFK, somebody will search my luggages, right?
Right.
Do they need search warrant?
Well, no. If, for example, I had an occasion where I had my laptop in one of my bags, and when they scanned the bag, and it made that sound, there was something in it. And they later asked me, what do you have in it? And I said, I have my laptop in it. And she said, can I see? So I said, yeah. So I took the key and opened it, opened it for to see the cover of the laptop was like light gray. And she said, okay. And then she closed it back. But because it had the way to scan, when it scanned, let's say
across the board a lot of time, you open your bag and they search in it. And if they find something, they call the police, right? That's what they will do at a custom area.
Yeah, they will have police there, but the custom and the police will work together. But the idea of how pursuit will come into place if you scan your suitcase and it makes unusual sound that may look like maybe you have gone in it. Let's say you travel with a 45 in your you wrap it up in all of your clothes is under there, and they ran it, and they found out that you had something. And what my experience is that some of the suitcases were passing. If you gave $5 to the custom person, say thank you for the work you're doing, they don't do anything anymore. So can people go through with that? Okay, that could be another issue, but they have the right to search right there and then without a search warrant.
Thank you. Our viewers are asking more questions. So let's talk about the last issue on the agenda tonight, and that's before I start this, I want to also say, this disclaimer that putting this on the topic does not in any way suggest that any of our presidential candidates fall within this category. We are not implying that anybody, or like the way something came up about Mr. Boakai being sick, that this is why. But because of this issue, people started talking about, okay, what happens? So in the case of presidential running mates, you have the presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate. Election is October 10.
Mm-hmm.
In September or even early October, if a presidential candidate is sick and cannot run, or is incapacitated, is unable, is unfit, whatever it is, that person cannot run for office, what happened? I know for the Constitution, in the Constitution, it says, whenever the office of the president shall become vacant by reason of death, and that's, I think, Article 63, resignation, impeachment, or the president shall be declared incapable of carrying out the duties and function of his office, the vice president shall succeed to complete the unexpired term. But for candidates, what does the Constitution say?
The Constitution doesn't speak to people who are not yet elected, but the question itself can be addressed by the bylaws and constitution that that political party has. In case, let's say, nomination of the president, presidential candidate, and vice presidential candidates have been done. And as you said, like September, one of the candidates become incapacitated, whether by death or by illness or otherwise. The question is, can the Election Commission entertain a communication from that political party to the chairman of the National Election Commission, nominating its vice presidential candidate to succeed the presidential candidate that is now incapacitated? Mind you, the Election Commission has reviewed all of the candidates,
right,
and has passed on the vice candidates,
right,
the presidential candidate and vice presidential candidate. Logically, what would suffice would be that the vice president, the political party, will maybe in the executive section have the vice president to be the candidate if they choose to. But the Election Commission, only thing the Election Commission can do is to receive a communication from them that, considering the incapacitation of the vice presidential candidate that was passed on by the Election Commission, maybe by death or by illness, that he or she cannot function to run to be president any longer, the petition or the information can be given to the election commission. The election commission can conduct with a request that the vice presidential candidate be the candidate to lead the party to the election. If you don't have experienced lawyers and experienced chairman and vice chairman at the election commission, that matter will have to travel to the Supreme Court because the election commission could deny the application on ground that it has already passed on all of the candidates. So incapacitated, dead or alive, your vice presidential candidate is no longer cannot become the presidential candidate for this party. But the Supreme Court will say otherwise because the unforeseeable necessitated circumstances, which meant that the presidential candidate is now incapacitated. Election has not been held. Therefore, maybe left like what, 11 days or 32 days for election to be held. The Supreme Court will mandate the election commission to consider the letter from the political party to have its vice presidential candidate to stand. But they are not governed by the Constitution until they become president and vice president.
But there will be no instance where they say, well, we already printed the ballots, so since the presidential candidate cannot run, your entire candidate is declared null and void. They won't do that.
They might do that if, again, as I said, if you don't have an experienced practicing lawyer heading the National Election Commission. The Election Commission could do that, but the matter will travel to the Supreme Court because a ruling from the Election Commission does not constitute a finality of what the law is. So parties that disagree will quickly run to the Supreme Court, and because it's election matter, and because election matter can lead to chaos, the Supreme Court will go through and find out, and the party that filing such application before the Election Commission, say for illness, will have to attach copy of the medical record of the candidate and the doctor report to indicate that the candidate is not incapacitated. Let's say the candidate cannot talk anymore. The candidate is alive, but has had stroke to the point that he or she cannot talk anymore, and that cannot be a presidential candidate because of this illness. Or take, for example, the party has died. That certainly. And so the death certificate, all of that will be filed. If the Election Commission should deny that, the Supreme Court will revise them and say, though Joseph Boakai was on the ballot, he is not incapacitated. So
for political reason, use my name. Don't use Joseph Boakai.
Yeah, or say, let's take for example, what is Liberty? Not Liberty. What the party? The Senate Barrow just died.
Right, PLP, Dr. Cllr.
Yeah, PLP. So nobody knew that PLP. The guy to me looked healthy and was running around, building bridges and giving back rice and chicken soup cup and everything to people everywhere he was going, giving some money to students to go to school, working, making sure people in Solin will have a better life. And I think it was like a month ago, or maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the guy just died. But in the case of anything of that nature, for the sake of peace and transparency, and because election matters in every form and manner, the Supreme Court will entertain that appeal in a speedy manner and hear that the vice presidential candidate will take over. But again, there is no law that support that the vice presidential candidate should take.
And if there is no clause like that in the bylaws or the constitution of the political parties, if did not, because we saw a similar issue where, or if it is not clear, or if it is wrong, like what we saw with the NPP, they say, well, our current standard bearer can no longer be because your term expired. Already the standard bearer is serving as vice president, but their constitution say you have only 2 years to be that, 2 terms. So after that, your term expires. So we can have that. So if the party constitution is silent on that, doesn't say it, or say it wrongly, what happens?
You know, the Supreme Court can only interpret that which is written from the Constitution, or the Supreme Court will not assume for the party. That's why all of the political parties in Liberia is an important thing to build institution. Meaning that there should always be anticipation that somebody can get sick and die, or somebody can get sick and become incapacitated, that he or she cannot function anymore. Where the Constitution doesn't say that, and only say that only the standard bearer, and there's no one that succeeds the standard bearer for any other thing, the Supreme Court will interpret the Constitution as it is. Meaning that, you can feel senatorial candidates and your presidential candidate done. Because your Constitution doesn't have anything like that. Because the Supreme Court will not write the Constitution for them.
Right.
So that's why when their constitutions are written, it's not enough to just say we have a standard bearer and the political leader will be the standard bearer. So what happened to is there a vice standard bearer? Because the Constitution say that they may choose a vice standard bearer. What if a vice president bearer has not been chosen before the person became incapacitated and the person may have died? So can you go to the election commission and say, our standard bearer political leader was on the ballot, but he had passed away? This election commission will say, good luck. My sympathy to you all, but your constitution is what it is. We're going to interpret it as it is. You go to the Supreme Court, they will sustain that. So it is a much more important to write progressive laws instead of writing law for our old people to just be the leaders, and nobody else can stand. Have you ever heard how they get appointed in the ANC stand-up thing? I heard they read the resolution, and Mr. Cummings is a political leader and stand-up bearer. The same thing with Joseph Boakai in the Unity Party thing, is a political leader and stand-up bearer. Have you heard a vice stand-up bearer in the Liberty Party case? The vice president for political affairs, vice president for youth something, vice president for women. But have you seen any progressive
assistant political leader or vice political leader? No.
They don't want to put that there, because what they wish to do is to vest. This is what they do when they get into government, is to vest all the power in the political leader, forgetting to know that all human beings will have to die. All human beings will have to get sick. So when
you die, the party dies with you.
Oh yeah.
What happens now? Let's say we go into an election and then say presidential candidate died. We can one time was say yes. Even if we're born in the same when they died, they didn't announce it until maybe after a month. So what if you conceal information because you don't want to disrupt anything?
And then the party wins.
Yeah, that person wins, who is now deceased.
So if the election went on, they conceal the information, then you now will revert to the Constitution. What happened to the before inauguration? What happened to the president-elect? The vice president-elect will take over and by constitutional provision will function, if it's for 6 years, function in the place of the president, or in some cases, they might decide to say maybe 3 months thereafter we'll hold another election. But because the party has concealed the information until their officials are now become elected officials. Yeah. And so the succeeding provision of the Constitution will cover them.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is FOL Justice Forum. This is where we discuss legal issues. And the legal issues that we've discussed today surrounding the MOU and MDA of the Western Cluster. We spoke about the search and seizure warrant by the LMP in the case of the cache of arms discovered in Monrovia. Now we are talking about secession clause for presidential candidates or presidential running mates. What if the presidential candidate is not able to run at the yellow hour? What happens? What does the Constitution say? If you want to take part in the conversation, please call the number that's on the screen. That's 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403#. And this is yet another reason to love Focus on Liberia, because we want to bring you the education behind these headlines. We want to give you expert opinions instead of just street talk. So, Councillor Jayweh, let me say this. What if it's the other way around? We're talking about the presidential candidate. So if it is the vice presidential candidate who is incapacitated, same thing?
You mean after election or after
No,
the
before election.
inauguration?
For 7 days to election. Because we can't even print ballot at that time now.
So let's maybe become practical here. If our current vice president, again, God forbid, should become incapacitated, mind you, the president of Liberia has the power to choose his vice president. But if the ballot had been printed, the thing that is important to note is that the presidential, the 6 years for the president and the vice president expires what? January 22nd, right? So let's say the election is held October 10. The elected president and vice president, if it's not Mr. Weah and Joel Howard Taylor, Vice President Joel Howard Taylor, they don't take over until there's a formal turning over inauguration on the 22nd of January. So the constitution provision that calls for the president replacing the vice president will come into play, because even though the election has been held and Mr. Weah and Mr. Joel Howard Taylor did not win 2023 election, the one that won cannot take over until the inauguration has been done in January, so the constitution will cover them. In other words, the president and the political party, because mind you, the president and the vice president are elected on the same ticket. And if because the time frame has expired, most likely the president will go, if he wins the election, he will be a president of a vice president, he appoints a vice president. Or that a special election is held. But again, the president and the vice president would win together if the vice president become incapacitated. If it is before election, the election commission should also be able to give room to the president to name his vice president. Because the vice president, I heard people saying, oh, Joseph Boakai was there, he did not do anything. Now he wants to be president. Or this person was there, he did not do. The vice president, like Liberia, is just a helper to the president. Where the president by law decides that he or she will designate the vice president to go to the United Nations to represent the country, the president has to tell the vice president to move before he or she moves. So the vice president does not have any power of her own or of his own to build bridges in Lofa County or to build a road to Sando County. It is the president's agenda that the vice president work along with, honor the agreement of the president by the consent of the president for the vice president to work. Also, so that position is just ceremonial. It doesn't really mean anything that much. Unless the president gives an open arm to say, Mr. Vice President, you will be responsible for the economic. If that person is an economist, the president is good enough to say, you will, work on how we grow the country, make sure people get jobs and whatnot. But knowing African politics, the president will sit down on all the power and decide what he wants to do with it or what she wants to do with it.
Thank you. Let's bring in our callers now. And callers, please keep your calls coming. Our first caller here is Mr. Elvis Morris. Mr. Morris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. John, and hello to Councilor Jayweh. And congratulations to your nephew, Mr. John.
Oh, thank you.
Quickly, I just want to ask if, for example, I think he kind of touched on it, but maybe he can expand on it a little more. With that whole Western cluster issue, is there a threshold? Is there, does it have to be like a petition of a certain amount of people where they can pray to the court for prohibition, like you said, Mr. Councilor Jayweh, where they can, try to stop that iron ore from shipping? And then, like Mr. John was saying, what would be the repercussion, to the government of Liberia in terms of what Western Cluster could do, to seek damages in terms of, Do you know if there's a provision under these MOUs if, for whatever reason, if the government calls, loss to the company through whatever means, they can sue the government to recoup that money and also, add punitive damage to it. And then with the JMB situation, I know here in America we have I think it's the 25th Amendment or the 21st Amendment, where if the president becomes incapacitated, you have his cabinet ministers who can pretty much impeach him because he's unfit for office. Do we have something like that? Not in terms of campaigning for president, but when we do have a president who is maybe ill, we saw that with Cllr, perhaps not Cllr, but Tubman. He was ill for many years, and nobody took that, 21st Amendment to try to impeach him because he couldn't fulfill his duties. Do we have that in our country, in our Constitution? Those are my two questions, and then thank you for the show. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
So you want us to answer Western Cluster?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so legally, the Western Cluster is running a legal risk to sign a memorandum of understanding with the executive branch of the government of Liberia. So every other injury that Western Cluster might have sustained or that may occur as a result or under the MOU is not binding on the government of Liberia or the Republic of Liberia, because under Article 34, DR 1 and 2, all bills, financial bills, must originate with the House of Representatives and concord to by the Senate in order for it to become law binding on the Republic of Liberia. So if Western Cluster wanted to sue the government of Liberia in any of the Liberian courts or outside the Liberian courts, let's say in the United States, Liberian law would be used as a guardians to be able to enforce whether or not Western Cluster can recover from Liberia since it signed the MOU. Legally, it cannot, because the MOU is in violation of the Constitution, because the executive branch of government does not make law. Laws are made by the House of Representatives and Senate. So an MOU that caused the Western Cluster to sustain damages, there is no recovery because the MOU is illegal. The government of Liberia will argue that way, and so the court will side with them. In the case, his question is there a remedy? Yeah, there's remedy at law. If the Bami, Bapolu, and Cape Mount citizens can come together, they could file a petition for a writ of prohibition, raising all of the constitutional issues that are available to them before the Supreme Court. One, to cause the iron ore currently trucked and sitting at the free port of Monrovia to prevent it from leaving the country. Two, to prevent Western Cluster from further operating the mines, because Western Cluster is operating under an MOU that's in violation of the Constitution of Liberia. Three, the government of Liberia owes Western Cluster no money because it assumed the risk to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the government of Liberia without a ratification by the House and the Senate.
Thank you. He was also talking about repercussion.
You mean repercussion on whom? On the government of Liberia?
Yeah. We send can the justice minister go to jail for misleading the executive branch into doing what it's not supposed to do?
If it can be established that this is what is referred to an ineffective assistance of counsel, then the justice minister may not go to jail. But the Ethics Committee of the Supreme Court, the Judicial Review Committee, I think they have a judicial conference group, could recommend that his license be taken away from him for 5 years, and he'll lose a position as Minister of Justice, because you cannot practice law in Liberia for 5 years because your license has been taken away. Then I think it happened to was a Minister of Justice, Christiana Tarr, that her license was taken away by the Supreme Court. And I think Philip Banks, Justice Philip Banks, was appointed at the time as Minister of Justice. It happened to former Associate Justice Michael Wright on the ECOWAS Community Court as Vice President. His license was pulled away and he lost the job. So there are consequences. If it can be proven by an independent body that the Minister of Justice misled the executive branch of government, he's in trouble.
Thank you. Evans, you are back.
All right, thank you again, Mr. John. I wanted to ask one other question, but I thought I was pressed for time. In terms of Senator Edwin Snow, what legal exposure can he have, being that he was actively negotiating this deal? Is there a law against, senators or representatives negotiating for entire county or constituent in terms of, concession agreements? Is there any legal exposure for Senator Snow? Yeah, I just wanted to add that question to him. Thank you. Thank you for taking my call again, Mr. John. Thank you.
Thank you. Jayweh, so the senators, representatives are the ones who's supposed to review this and ratify this agreement. But if can a senator both negotiate it and then it come right in front of you and you ratify it?
I think it's a conflict of interest. When Mr. Snow publicly went on several radio stations to explain that he flew from Liberia with the Minister of Mines and Energy to go negotiate the Western Cluster thing, I thought that was the worst thing that could have happened for a senator to start to negotiate for the executive branch of government. That's the law that speaks about separation of power, the Constitution that speaks about the separation of power impacts Mr. Snow. You don't have the authority to do that. Yeah. And it says one member of a branch of government cannot assume the role and power of the other branch. It says very clearly, it says Liberia is a unitary state divided into counties for administrative purposes. The form of government is a republican with a separate coordinate branches: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary, consistent with the principle of separation of powers and checks and balances. No person holding office in one of the branches shall hold office or exercise any of the power assigned to either of the two branches. So article chapter 1, article 3, just basically we deal with Mr. Snow. And if the people of Liberia,
if he does that, what happens?
Well, if the people of Liberia found out that in negotiating, because I understand the money that Western Cluster owe in taxes were pretty close to being 24 million, and only 10 million that Western Cluster said they will pay in the slow negotiation along with the Minister of Justice, Minister of Finance, the National Investment Commissioner, Chairman Person, and what you call it, the Minister of Mines and Energy. Somehow, some way, the negotiation ended with Western Cluster only agreeing to pay $10 million and the rest of almost $40 million wave. If it can be established that fraud was committed, Mr. Snow could be could be arrested because he had violated his oath. He could be arrested, indicted, arrested, and prosecuted.
Let's take another caller here. This is Mr. James Lassa. Mr. Lassa, you're live.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Dennis. So, Councilor Jayweh, it's actually good to talk to you, having spoken to you years now, and quite appreciative of your very critical contribution making tonight to help clarify the issues for us ordinary folks here. Now, I think you already spoke on one of the two issues I wanted to raise. If you can just clarify my mind, however, before that, on the thing is, it's still a material, I think, that was supposed to give to the government on behalf of, in the interest of Bon Nima and Baza. Mm-hmm. And then Samatoy and other people going ahead to waive about 14 or 15 million of that. Certainly, they don't have the authority to, because they are not close with the constitutional authority to actually legislate revenue questions relating to revenue.
Mhm.
So, and if there is no clause in the contract with MDA, with the concession, they too could stand to lose if they have been making profit and everything, and there is no provision for them to ask for a waiver unless they were in cahoots with with government actors, corrupt government actors to cheat on the Liberian people. I think there should be a remedy to retrieve that amount, or for it to amount to a loss to the company, and the corporates involved to be held accountable. It's just sad for that country that everybody is just off for enriching himself at all costs. I mean, against the ordinary Liberian people. So if you can speak to that, that would be good. Now, on the question of, let me just disclose, full disclosure first, that I strongly support VP Boakai, primarily because of two reasons. Mainly because he was cheated in the last election through the instrumentality of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who was so fearful of him and had to do everything to give the election to we. That is the sympathy factor he enjoys for most of us here. Strongly support him.
And those are your opinion, right? There's no, those are not based in facts, correct?
Yeah, they are proofs.
Okay.
Several various evidences of pieces of evidence that can substantiate that. I don't think you want to give me time to go into that.
Right. Let us not go into it because it's alleged. So,
but one thing about this VP question is that I was just so surprised at the ANC people, Mr. Cummings, with all the gravitas with which people believe he comes, that no one around him could know that historically, and this is common knowledge, that the easiest and best way to be president in any country is to be a vice president. How would they want to fight that on the basis that, the man going to be vice president who is already old and sick? You would think that if they were even speaking truth and it were acceptable, that would be a more compelling reason why he would want to go. If at all he knew what to do, or if he had the right talent around him, it's just so sad. At this point, I really think Mr. Cummings doesn't need to go anywhere around the VP post with Boakai, because anyone going with him will likely be the president over some time. And VP Boakai has Nyami Kanga or Jawan Gongo to take of him and to redeem that country from the hands of what Ellen Johnson would call vampires. So thank you, Councillor Jayweh, if you can kindly speak to the first question.
And thank you.
So, yes, sir. Hi, my friend. Long time we have not spoken. Just as you said, and I will say that it is a tough situation because I understand most of the companies that come to Liberia to do business, either Councillor Vani Sherman is a lawyer and he's in the Senate, or some senators that have close relationship and already senator get involved in writing those laws. Again, for the interest of the company, it is always important to have one or two or three private independent attorneys or counselors at law who basically will advise you appropriately and correctly. Just to clearly answer your question, any amount of money that was waived based upon the MOU, that waiver is unconstitutional. It violates Article 34 of the Liberian Constitution. So it is as if it was never waived. What am I saying? Western Cluster, if you're owing $24 million to the Liberian government and has agreed to pay $10 million, the other money it will pay. Because the MOU does not give Western Cluster the right. It's not a law that will give the Western Cluster the right, unless the House of Representatives and the Senate pass on that waiver. The president and his officials have no legal authority to decide to waive any amount of money. Now, were there $5 million paid? Yes, if $5 million were paid under the MOU, before paying that money, Western Cluster should have been advised by, again, private and independent lawyers to be able to say whether the MOU could trump the MDA, or there needed to be an MDA to actually start the mining. Those that are injured in bombing, Bapulu, and Grand Cape County have remedy at law. In fact, I would just go further to say that we are hearing that people are being, the women are getting sick, and people just having diarrhea, people's skin burning and so forth, growing out of the chemical that are being used to do the mining. There is also private lawsuit that can be filed against the Western Cluster for violating the Liberian environmental law. I don't know whether Liberian laws or not, but I will close by saying this. In November 26, I think it's 2005, the Environmental Act that created the EPA also provides that there must be an environmental appellate court manned by 5 Liberian lawyers or experienced lawyers to be able to sit as a court and go into the violation of the environmental rights of those people who are affected. They themselves can file a complaint to the EPA, and that complaint could allege that Western Cluster has caused them damage in X amount of dollars. They don't need the government to file that complaint. They can file it under the environmental law, the Jayweh, in fact, 2002, November 26, 2002, the Environmental Act that created the EPA. Under that act, they can file a lawsuit for all the injuries and damages they are suffering currently as a result of Western Cluster violating the environmental law. And
thank you. Thank you. Let me take a few comments here. Haruna Keita, the political parties have their own bylaws that might solve the problem in consultation with the Constitution. And he continues, in the case of one of the political parties' bylaws, in the absence of the political leader, the chairman becomes the acting political leader. That's for LP, he says. Vivian is saying everybody using one-hand glove. Chill, Liberia. This one from Trent. Trent Powell, Councillor, hi, Councillor Jayweh. Thanks for your clear explanation regarding the legalization of an MOU originating from the executive on one hand and an offshore investor on the other hand. Please see my question below. He asks, does the executive have a lawyer as part of its team to provide legal advice?
The Minister of Justice.
The Minister of Justice.
Justice, or what you call him, Bernard. Councillor Bernard, Ajibak Bernard is advisor to the President on Legal Affairs.
What about the Solicitor General?
Oh yeah, in fact, the entire Ministry of Justice.
Oh.
We always laugh and say the Ministry of Justice is the largest law firm in the Republic of Liberia or in any country because there are many lawyers in there. Did they advise the President? I don't know.
I hope they do. Crane guy said Liberian police need complete training. Massa is following from Virginia. I hope it's Virginia, Liberia. Alex Johnson is saying, is tomorrow the President's State of the Nation address and no one talking about it? I'm not aware. Last year, the State of the Nation was on January 24. This year, I've not heard when it's going to be, but I'm not, I can't say because I don't know at this point. But we'll find out.
Maybe the President will record his speech and broadcast it.
Councillor Jayweh, read some comments and then you can wrap that in your closing.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that again, it seemed like the bombing Cape Mount and
let me read this long one from Mr. Emmanuel Jackson. Similar situation happened in Bombay County in 1981 with the acquisition of BF Goodrich by Goodrich, a Malaysian company. BF Goodrich in Akron, Ohio, broke their contract with the Liberian government and paid out salaries and benefits of their former employees and bombing territory at a time. The PRC government retains status quo and never ever pay the employees their retirement benefits and force them to work for Goodry as new employees. The Liberian government always self-inflicting pains.
Well, I may just like to comment. The thing is that in such situation, it's important to consult a private lawyer and not just go ahead and start working. Because the company that took over will have to bear the responsibility to pay those pensions that were available based upon what agreement I brought into power.
Thank you. Your closing. Thank you so much, Councillor Jayweh, for coming to clarify some of these things. I hope our viewers got something, even those who will watch later. Hope you get something out of it.
Well, I would say it is very important. This is a very good show. And it is important that our people don't just jump the gun. For example, people do not just conclude that diaspora Liberians are shipping arms to Liberia to overthrow the government. It makes no sense. If anything that has to do with such warrant, I think the Minister of Justice, I would suggest, and other lawyers should hold training for the police. As to how do you do such warrant, how do you secure the evidence thereafter? And also, it is important for our people to know, I'm from Grand Bassa County, and I'm concerned with whether Meta Steel is paying money to use to put in Grand Bassa County. And the Bassa people are not benefiting. I also have connection in Bon County. So I also wish to see whether or not the Bon County people getting benefit. Also Panema County, where the ore is being mined. It's important that these things are discussed and clarified on a day-to-day basis, because at the end of the day, it is the Liberian people that will suffer. And that people who in government will also enrich themselves at the disadvantage of our people. I thank you for the show, and I hope our people from time to time would listen to such a show to ensure that their rights are protected. Mainly, those who are affected by perhaps the chemical in Bomi County have remedy at law. They do not need the government to sue.
Thank you so much, Councillor Jayweh. I want to thank our viewers, those who called, who commented, and even those who will watch later. Always tune in to focus on Liberia, because we are obligated. We made our duty to educate, to elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we're going to close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are